A wild weekend at Las Vegas is capped off with William Byron getting his first win of the season. We talk Chase Elliott's injury, who's going to replace him, and the debate whether drivers should perform extracurriculars not at the track during the season. You're entering the Tunnel Turn, presented by Dogleg Media. Hey guys, thanks so much for joining us here today. I am Matt, your host. This is the Tunnel Turn. We had a wild weekend at Las Vegas this weekend. We had 3 races, the trucks were back in action, and William Byron gets his first win of the season. The weekend started off on Friday night with Kyle Busch in his first race in his Chevrolet KBM truck, getting the win at Las Vegas in his home track. He would perform the triple this weekend. He did not get the Xfinity Series win. He got a top 10 there. And then, of course, William Byron gets the win on Sunday. But the race was probably the most boring part of the weekend. As many of you guys know, Chase Elliott was involved in a snowboarding accident on Friday. He broke his tibia and had surgery on Friday night to fix it. Friends and teammates say that Chase Elliott is an experienced snowboarder and this was just a freak accident. And it just goes to show that anything can go wrong at any time. And his injury has sparked a great debate in the garage and amongst fans on whether drivers should participate in extracurriculars outside of the track during the season. There are drivers on both ends of the aisle here. First, you're going to see a clip from Kevin Harvick right here.
All right, Kevin, first I want to ask you, what was your reaction when you heard the news about Chase Elliott yesterday?
Well, you don't ever want somebody in a spot where they have to miss races, and I think it's an unfortunate situation, and I think as long as our gear is and things that we have going on, you have to go out and do the things you like to do. And look, you could fall down a hill snowboarding, or you could trip over your cat at home. So, I mean, life happens, and you just have to do the best you can to. He just needs to make sure he takes care of his leg correctly and gets himself back healthy, and the way he's 100% in the car. But stuff happens.
Have you had situations like stipulations on things you can't do, in your contract, away from the racetrack? Like that, like snowboarding, or I don't know.
I honestly don't know. I just try to do the things I like to do, and I try to be as smart about it as possible. But I'm gonna live my life and do the things that I like to do, and spend time with my kids doing things like that. And I think you probably talk to half the garage, and they probably ski or snowboard.
Okay.
And Kevin Harvick shared the same sentiment that many other drivers, including Chase Elliott's close friend Ryan Blaney, shared. That drivers should live their lives, they're all humans, and at the end of the day, they should enjoy their life. And then you're going to see some tweets from Brad Keselowski pop up on the screen here. The first one is pretty telling, and I think it was really interesting, and I actually tweeted at Brad K and thanked him for this. This is something that I didn't even know. I had heard that a lot of teams put clauses in their contracts to where they can't do extracurriculars outside of the racetrack during the season. And as you can see here, though, Brad Keselowski says that not that he knows of, he's never had those regulations, but most of the time, if the driver is injured outside of the track, they just don't get paid. And he says here that that's a pretty strong deterrent in itself. And let's take a look at another one of Brad Keselowski's tweets. He expanded on this somewhat. Brad Keselowski says in his first 10 seasons of racing, he was extremely careful. He was so cautious, and that's because he thought that if anything happened, that would be an excuse for them to cut him. He goes on to say that it's his struggle to balance life and work in this sport. On the other side of the aisle, though, Christopher Bell spoke on it and said that Joe Gibbs Racing does in fact have these restrictions in their contract. He calls it a trade-off, and I'm assuming he means that if you don't do these extracurriculars outside of the track, there's a less chance of you getting hurt. To an extent, I can agree with that as well. These drivers, it affects everybody whenever they're not in the car. The sponsors, the fans, the team, and the competition. Another thing that is sparked from this injury is, of course, whether or not Chase Elliott should get a waiver from NASCAR for missing races due to the injury. NASCAR has set a precedent for giving these waivers out. However, most of the instances, the drivers are injured on the track. Look back at last year to Kurt Busch. He was given a medical waiver because of his injury at Pocono. In 2020, it was the COVID season. Jimmy Johnson and Joey Logano both missed time due to the virus. And then, of course, we all remember the miraculous 2015 season. I was actually at that Daytona race where Kyle Busch broke his leg in the Xfinity Series. He went on to win the championship that year after getting that waiver. One of the instances, though, that involves an extracurricular outside of the track was in 2016 when Tony Stewart had an ATV accident and NASCAR granted him a waiver there as well. One other note, though, is that Paul Menard was not given a waiver for the birth of his child. So, that has NASCAR fans up in arms. Should Chase Elliott get a waiver? Should he not? He clearly made the decision to go snowboarding during the season, and that resulted in an injury that's going to have him sidelined for several weeks, according to Hendrick. And of course, with Chase Elliott's injury, there is a replacement driver. Josh Berry filled the 9 car this weekend at Las Vegas and came home with a 29th place finish 2 laps down. Not an ideal start for Berry, the number 8 driver for Junior Motorsports in the Xfinity Series, and his performance has raised questions from the fans. And who should replace Elliott for the remainder of his injury? Fans on Twitter have been very elaborate with who they think should take the seat. Many people say Jimmy Johnson, owner of Legacy Motor Club and 7-time champion with Hendrick Motorsports, driving the 48. Other people say Dale Earnhardt Jr., which is a fan dream, but I would say that the risk of injury is not going to get Dale Jr. in the seat. People do make a great argument for Dale Jr., though. With him being a broadcast partner with NBC Sports, being in the seat and feeling this next-gen car will be great for him to comment on these races in the second half of the season. Jr.'s also been very vocal about wanting to go cup racing here in the very near future, so getting in one of these seats in a time of need could very well give him the motivation and the experience to do so. And then people have also talked about a full JRM rotation with Sam Mayer, Justin Allgaier, and Brandon Jones to fill the seat. I was listening to SiriusXM earlier today, and Larry McReynolds was on talking about Ernie Irvan's injury back in the 90s at Michigan, and he told Robert Yates that, hey, we need to put somebody consistent in the car so we can get a feel for what they mean when they say too loose or too tight. And I can kind of agree with that. You like consistency, especially if this is going to be a several-week ordeal. But I'm going to turn it over to you. Do you guys think that Chase Elliott should get a medical waiver? And if he does, who do you think should replace him for the rest of the time that he's out? And of course, we can't make a video about Las Vegas without talking about the race. William Byron gets the win after leading both stages and winning the race. Byron had not had a great start of the season so far with no top 20 finishes until today. Byron, although dominating the race the entire time, kind of stole this one, or should I say NASCAR stole it. Because with about 4 laps to go, caution came out, and Eric Almirola got into the wall, didn't turn all the way around, but got into the wall and got sideways, and NASCAR threw a caution. At the time of caution, Kyle Larson had a 3-second lead on Byron and was cruising to the victory. With that caution, most of the field came in for fresh tires, as you do at Las Vegas, except for one driver, Martin Truex Jr. The driver who was winless last year took a gamble, stayed out on old tires, and meanwhile the story was developing on pit road. Kyle Larson had lost the battle to William Byron, and Byron came out in front on the battle on pit road, which ultimately won the race for him. On the restart, those new tires propelled Byron right past Truex, and he cruised to victory in NASCAR overtime to get his first win of the season. Although Byron was sure happy with the result of the race, many NASCAR fans were not. Every week, Jeff Gluck puts a poll out to see if this was a good race or not, and here are the results right now with about 13 hours left. So as you can see, over 50% of the fan base did not think that this was a good race. There's over 20,000 votes on it, and there's still more time to go. I echo the same sentiment. I don't think it was a very entertaining race. William Byron led most of the race. There was only 2 cautions. One of them was a pseudo caution at the end of the race for Eric Almirola, and the rest of the time was green flag pit stops, and William Byron led many of the laps there, the most of the race. So congratulations to William Byron. Let's get into what the point standings look like right now post Las Vegas. So as you'll see on the screen, Ross Chastain maintains his point lead, but it is slim over the 48 car of Alex Bowman after a great showing again at Las Vegas, finishing 3rd after he won this race last year. Kevin Harvick in 3rd place right now, his final season. He's up there. He's contending for wins. He's had a great consistent year so far, and he's in 3rd in the points. Right behind him, Daniel Suarez. Suarez is 25 points behind his Trackhouse teammate. And in 5th place is Martin Truex Jr. After that last-ditch effort to win this race, he's in 5th place in the points with a great start to the season so far. You'll notice those Joe Gibbs Toyotas are 5, 6, and 7. Denny Hamlin in 6th and Christopher Bell in 7th. Kyle Busch, he's in the same spot as his number. He's in 8th place in the points. He's already locked into the playoffs with his win at Fontana. Joey Logano and Chris Buescher, a pair of Fords, round out your top 10. Joey Logano, he started on the pole. He's been very good at Las Vegas and did not show it today. He ran mid-pack after the first stage, and then he got into the wall, and that was it for his day. Joey Logano goes from the pole to very last position, and he was the only car that did not finish this race. Next weekend, we're going to be at Phoenix Raceway. They're going to be testing out that new rules package with the 2-inch spoiler that should allow more passing. Let's hope to see that this weekend. That'll do it for us here at the Tunnel Turn, guys. I appreciate all of your support. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel. As always, guys, this is the Tunnel Turn, presented by Dogleg Media.